Hey lovelings, it's me, Allison Gray. I'm so excited to be making another in the flow, spontaneous, from the heart video. And today I'm feeling inspired to talk about SymbolSpeak, which is my unique modality I've developed over the past few years and now offer to other people in the form of coaching and mythology reports. That's the thing I do now, which is getting profoundly positive feedback from people. So basically, SymbolSpeak is a modality where I teach people how to perceive life as a dream. Why would anyone want to do that? What does that mean? What's the point? Okay, so in this video, I'm going to address all of that, and I'm speaking to you as someone who has used SymbolSpeak to heal myself of so many things that were destroying my life, preventing me from living. So I had clinically diagnosed PTSD, OCD, fibromyalgia, and a menstrual disorder, which one gynecologist called PCOS, but there was no formal test done or whatever. It just was recognized. All of these things were recognized by professionals in the medical and mental health fields as actual disorders that I had, and that I have successfully applied my own modality, SymbolSpeak, to completely heal. I do not have any of these issues anymore. And so I believe in SymbolSpeak with all of my heart, and I am on a mission to put it out there in front of more and more people. But the thing is that I keep running into when I'm describing SymbolSpeak to people is they're like, life is a dream, what do you mean? Sometimes people are just confused by that, and I am still finding my access point to invite people into contemplating the possibility of life being a waking dream. Sometimes people are offended. There's always going to be the people who respond to any sort of new thought modality, the thoughts create reality kind of way of seeing the world, with offense and disgust. Like, how could you ever suggest that I manifested poverty, or I manifested, whatever it is that they don't like? So I'll start there because it's juicy. And I'm speaking to you as someone who had to accept first that all of the things I didn't like in my life were indeed coming from my inner world. Does that mean I wanted them? Not necessarily. And does that mean I was to blame for my suffering? Dicey. I mean, personally, I think yes. But blame is not a useful word when you're trying to invite people into this mystery of life being a dream. It just ends up making people feel defensive and whatever. So for the sake of telling the truth, I am going to say you are responsible for everything you experience in your reality. But because most of what we manifest in our lives is manifested unconsciously, we don't realize we're doing it. It's happening below the level of consciousness, outside of our awareness. So we don't realize it's coming from us. For that reason, I try to approach these things with grace and give people the grace of, they know not what they do. So I like to start, instead of on a note of blame, on a note of forgiveness for the ways in which we've failed to apply our conscious, intentional, purposeful thoughts to reality, and instead have been passive to our lives and have been at the mercy of other people's consciousness, other people's wills manifesting for us. Or sometimes we manifest things on the subconscious level because they are serving a purpose for us. So, speaking for myself again, so that I'm not ivory towering you right now. I'm not speaking to you as some privileged bitch who's like, oh yeah, life is just so easy and it's always been easy. Why don't you see it that way? No. Life for me was very much not easy until, I would say, the last year, honestly. I still have challenges, but now I know how to handle them, which is why we're here. So speaking for myself, when I was in the throes of PTSD, I would never admit it to you that the PTSD, while it started as genuine suffering from various kinds of abuse in childhood, eventually morphed into some dark, twisted monster of... I became a villain. I became a villain in that if anyone ever tried to criticize me, give me positive, constructive feedback, or help me, God forbid, if anyone tried to help me in my place of suffering, I had learned how to weaponize my PTSD. And some of you with PTSD might start recognizing yourself in what I'm about to say. But I had learned how to say things, very manipulative, combative things like, how could you say that to me? You know what I went through. Oh my God, what kind of person would blame someone for being abused? Blah, blah, blah. So I had learned how to utilize my PTSD to shut down conversations that shined a little too much light on my own dark side. So the PTSD was no longer just like a byproduct of things that happened in childhood. Now I was an adult, and now I was responsible for what I did with that pain, what I did with that story. So I had learned how to weaponize my narrative about how I'd been so hurt to fend off legitimate criticisms of me, even positive interactions like emotional intimacy, friendships, you name it. I used the trauma, my trauma, as an identity to avoid changing what needed to be changed. And so that's just one example. But point is, I had to be willing to look at my own participation in the creation of the PTSD. Again, not as a child, because I don't believe children manifest. I want to address that at length, actually, in a moment. Not as a child, but as an adult who does have a choice. I was now using my free will as an adult free agent who could make choices to continue to commit myself to a limiting perspective, a damaging perspective. And so it was only after I took responsibility and dared to admit and confess that, yes, even the trauma comes from inside me. Even the experience of being such a victim of the world comes from inside me. And I can no longer blame the past or players of the past. It's all on me now. Only then did I start to heal. And I actually go really radically, unflinchingly into the reality of facing trauma in my essay, Why the Rape Made Perfect Sense. Read if you dare. That's all I'm going to say. I want you to know who you're working with when you work with me. I'm the kind of person who writes things like that. So don't say I didn't trigger warn you. If I'm speaking to you as an adult, the first thing I want you to understand is heretofore, everything in your life that you've experienced past puberty has been your responsibility. Things that happened to you as a child, if they were really negative, traumatic, upsetting, disturbing, I'm sorry that those things happened to you. The grim reality, though, is that the only person who can change your experience of those memories is you. And actually, that's not a grim reality at all. That's one of my favorite truths about this universe, that I have the power to change how I experience the worst things that have ever happened to me. Like, to be able to say I can look at something that other people would say is objectively horrific and look at it and say, I'm going to transmute that lead into gold. I'm not going to say it was okay that people did what they did. Instead, I'm going to take that and make the most of it, bring it to its higher octave, bring it to its higher potential. I have the power to do that. I'm grateful I have the power to do that. Okay? Read me. I'm not saying I'm grateful bad things happened. I'm grateful I figured out how to take bad things and turn them good. So this is where I depart from people who say there's no such thing as good and evil. Honey, lead and gold are not the same. I'll leave that there. You can intuit what I mean by that, so I don't take up too much time in this video. So back to explaining SymbolSpeak. So we've established that, thoughts do create reality, and I dare you to start paying attention to your thoughts. If you don't know what I mean by thoughts create reality, you've probably experienced a synchronicity that has given you insight into this truth, and you didn't realize that the synchronicity was showing you that thoughts create reality. I actually wrote a whole book about that called Synchronicities. The Signs All Point to You. That is on Amazon. So, basically, when you experience a synchronicity, especially of the variety that's like, oh, I was just thinking about bluebirds and then I saw a bluebird. Oh my God, what are the chances? Like, that's you getting a glimpse beyond the veil. That's you getting to see how it is your own thoughts that then echo back to you from the so-called outer world. The outer world is like a projector screen that like reflects back to you what you projected there. So whenever you're like taken by surprise by something out there appearing that first started in here, just like take a second, trace back your thoughts, and realize where it came from. So once you start paying more attention to your thoughts generally, noticing when you're replaying arguments in your head, noticing when you're dwelling on anxiety, just noticing the patterns of thinking you currently have, you'll start seeing how those thoughts become things. Give it some time, because the other thing about thoughts creating reality is that there's lag time in this dimension. There's lag time, which is why most people never figure it out. Because by the time something manifests in the outer world that they had been thinking about 3 days before, they already forgot that they had that thought. They didn't know they had it to begin with, right? So this is what we mean when we talk about unconsciousness. So get into the habit of paying attention to your thoughts, noticing how they come back to you in the outer world. I promise you can create any reality experience you desire by choosing to dwell in certain thoughts as opposed to others. I was playing with this recently. I decided for about a week that I wanted reality to have ABC rules, and then ABC started like coming back to me in the form of like book recommendations, YouTube video recommendations on my algorithm, and so on and so on. Then like a week later I was like, actually I want reality to work like XYZ, and then boom, same thing. I'd get recommended books, YouTube videos, have conversations with strangers that would align with XYZ. And so you are choosing your own adventure in this reality. Now, all of that established, let's talk about what symbols and the dream of life have to do with any of this. So the same way that you have dreams at night, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, that wasn't real, right? The same way, there's the dream reality, and then above it, waking reality. Above this reality is an even higher plane of consciousness. The same way I was talking about brainwave states before, there's like theta, beta, alpha. Did I skip one? Did I skip Delta? Because Delta Airlines sucks. So there's, basically higher and higher states of consciousness. And in this reality, a lot of people think this is like it. This is as conscious as we get. Nope, it gets even more conscious. There's like gamma, and there are, it's parallel to like the so-called spiritual hierarchy. There's beings who are of a higher state of consciousness than where we're at right here in this realm where I'm talking to you. So basically, relative to those higher planes, this waking life is a dream. I can't emphasize this hard enough. The same way you have a dream at night, you're down here in your consciousness, and then you wake up and you're slightly more conscious and you're like, oh cool, that was just symbolic, it was just a dream. Yeah, the same exact way. The higher realms see this reality as a dream. So everything you're experiencing right now is just a slower, denser dream than where your consciousness, your soul resides up here. And everything happening here in the dense, tangible, physical world is akin to a dream where everything in this realm is just a symbol. The same way that the weird, surreal stuff that happens in your nighttime dreams are symbolic, the stuff happening in your waking life is symbolic. So this is where I think people kind of struggle to grasp what I'm saying. And so I want to try to remember where I was when I first figured this stuff out and speak to you on that level if it's not resonating yet. So again, back to the nighttime dream analogy. Someone who has recurring nightmares about getting up in front of people on a stage and then forgetting all their lines and then shaking and feeling nervous and feeling humiliated. Someone who doesn't understand that dreams are manifestations of their consciousness states will never figure out why they keep having that dream. They might think, oh, dreams, they're just weird. No one really knows why we have them. But once you start to become aware of your own thoughts, which is why you need to watch your thoughts constantly, because this is your key to understanding where you are in the universe. Watch your thoughts for a while. You'll start to notice how you generally feel shame And so that dream that seems random at first no longer seems random. Now you understand the dream of getting up on stage and forgetting all your lines and feeling flustered and humiliated is related to you. It's about you. It's your dream talking to you. It's your soul communicating, hey, there's something in here. We don't like it? Fix it. Change what you're thinking about. Change your feeling of shame, and then you'll stop having that dream. Okay? So dreams point us back to our inner world, which is the source of the projection of reality. Dreams point us back to where it all started, where it was all created from. So if you can address the shame and work on your self-confidence, work on whatever childhood experience caused you to feel ashamed. Maybe it was like an overbearing parent who was always criticizing you or something. Once you work on that, forgiving the person who hurt you, forgiving yourself for holding on to the hurt, then your dream changes. Then you might end up having a dream where now you can get up on stage and deliver a smashing performance and the crowd goes wild and then you know it's resolved. In the exact same way, this waking life is a dream of the higher realms, of your higher consciousness. So let's say your car keeps breaking down. You take it to the mechanic, something else goes wrong. You take it back to the mechanic, something else goes wrong, and you can't figure it out. It's like, what is this? If you haven't yet clocked it, that reality is symbolic and it's just a dream version of the true reality above, you will never actually fix your car. You can go to the mechanic all you want, but until the source of those car issues, which is just symbolic of your inner world, until it's addressed in the inner world, your car is going to keep giving you trouble. You could get a new car, and the new car will give you trouble. I've seen this in my own life, in the people who work with me. These patterns that we think we can physically remove, it's not that simple. It's about addressing it in here. So to then understand, okay, how can a series of car problems be related to my inner world? Well, let's think about the symbolism of a car. Cars in American culture, I'd say America's very car-centric, not like other places where cars are more like a bonus way of transportation. Other places are more walkable or they have public transit. So if you're like American, this matters. Like, what does the car mean in your collective context? And then what does the car mean to you? Let's say you have always heard people say that cars represent freedom and the ability to go anywhere you want, whenever you want, right? Like, it's every teenager's fantasy to get those car keys so they can take themselves on adventures and not have to, be watched by their parents, right? So it's like representative of individuation. So let's say you're having car problems all the time. It could be that the car is expressing symbolically that you don't feel like you are truly individuating from the culture, the family around you. You could feel like you're living for other people. It could be that you're still holding on to this sense of having to appease your parents, appease your spouse, appease your friends. So the car symbolically shows you how you feel about yourself and the states of being you've been dwelling in for a long time, by breaking down constantly. Oh, you can't go anywhere? You can't take yourself anywhere? You can't decide where you're going in life? It's because in here, there's some work to do. So my own example is I was terrified to drive for so long. I would literally be shaking behind the wheel. I put off driving lessons forever. And I finally learned to drive 3 years ago. So here's what I did to overcome the fear, because our fears are symbolic too. The things you're afraid of, your phobias, are showing you what parts of yourself you're rejecting. So I did my own SymbolSpeak process to interpret the symbolism of my fear of driving. And what I came up with was that I was afraid to become an adult. I was afraid to become fully autonomous and sovereign because I was afraid I'd get in trouble with my extremely controlling mother. There was still some part of me that thought, maybe if I just change myself this way or that way to appease her, like whatever. So for me, that ended up becoming like an inability to drive. And only once I went inward and addressed that little fearful child in me and gave myself permission, as if I was my own parent, my own adult looking out for me, I gave myself permission to grow up, then it's like the fear washed out of my body and I was able to start driving. And now I drive all the time and it's nothing. It's easy. I can't believe how afraid I used to be of driving, because now it's like, whatever. And it works like that. When you understand life is symbolic and you know how to speak symbolically to your subconscious mind where all your limiting beliefs are, once you know how to convey new states of being to your own subconscious and make an impression on your subconscious through symbols, then there lies your freedom. So I think I've adequately explained the premise of SymbolSpeak. For the record, there is a pay what you wish course called SymbolSpeak, Decrypting and Rescripting Reality for Health, Wealth, and Happiness. That's on my website. It's pay what you wish. You can literally choose any amount. There's another similar course called Life is But a Dream, and it's a recording of an event I did a little while back. That is also pay what you wish. So if you want to learn more about these things, I highly recommend you go to my website, allison-gray.com. Under courses, you'll find those things. But while we're here, I'll just keep talking about it. So ultimately, everything is just about changing your states of being, and you don't need any bells and whistles to do that. You don't need any props, whatever. However, even though you don't need them, they can be useful. And for some people, it takes some practice to get to the point where they can just meditate their way to a new state of being. Other people need a little bit of help. So I think of it as kind of like a spectrum. How are you going to see this video? Maybe it doesn't matter. So at the beginning of the spectrum, there's people who cannot accept that their reality is in any way, shape, or form connected to their inner states. That's egregious. That's offensive. Don't you ever blame me for the things that happen to me. Okay, so this is like sleepwalking central. And then someone's starting to wake up, but they're very vulnerable as they're starting to wake up, because then anyone who has even a little bit of a glow in their aura becomes their teacher. The people who are just starting to wake up are the most vulnerable to like false lights, fallen angels, spirit guides who are actually like, vampires in the astral realm, gurus, cult leaders, like people who will do them harm. So, but it's because when you're just starting to wake up to the reality that you are the sovereign creator of your reality, you may not yet have had the revelation of like how to be responsible, how to take radical responsibility for yourself and your life. And so you're still kind of looking for someone else to give you permission to think a certain way, someone else to reassure you, you're not crazy, you're just awakening. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Most of us have to go through this like period where trial by fire, where we have a teacher and we think the teacher is the source of the knowledge, and then we end up, being eaten alive and then have to recover from the cult trauma. I've been there, ask me how I know. Basically then the next stage of awakening is you realizing you're responsible, but there's still some deep-seated patterns, deep-seated habits of thinking that you don't really know how to change on command. This stage, these are the people I work with. And then after that, I would say is the stage where you really, really get it, that you're sovereign and you don't even need magic to do anything. You can just change your mind. This is more in the realm of like mental mastery. The masters are over here. I would say symbols are the bridge between needing assistance from the outer world to shape your reality and recognizing it's you who does it. So here's what I mean by that. When you think of a magician, like a ceremonial magician who like puts on a robe and they hold a scepter and they speak some incantation in Latin, and then they take themselves so seriously. They set up a whole ceremonial space, and then they have their coven watching them, and like it's a whole production, right? Like a theatrical production. Quite literally, it is theater. Why do they do this? Because none of this is necessary. All you really have to do is sit here and meditate and really pointedly visualize the thing you want, and you can have it. So why does any magician bother with symbols? This is because your subconscious speaks the language of symbols, and symbols are one vehicle for meaning. They can be a vehicle for new states of being, new states of consciousness to impress upon your unconscious mind. And your unconscious is largely where you manifest from. So this is why, and there's so much research to back me up on this, by the way. I am not someone who's like, well, science says, but in this case, for those of you watching who are just feeling very skeptical, just know that there is plenty of research about the efficacy of ritual and ceremony on changing the psyche. This is known, and this is practiced in psychology. Rituals can do a great deal to change a person's state of being and their self-perception, which makes all the difference in the reality you're manifesting. So why bother with symbols? Because someone who has for a very long time struggled with authority, with feeling like they have any authority, if you tell them, well, just imagine you're an authority, that's not gonna click, okay? That doesn't help them. That doesn't work for them. It's not landing. But if you tell that person to put on a suit, a fancy suit that makes them feel like a CEO, that suit, wearing that suit, can actually change how they behave, can actually change how they perceive themselves and others in relation to themselves. Why? Because your subconscious speaks the language of symbols. If you've spent your whole life seeing that successful people wear suits, and you want to be successful but you don't know how to get there, it can actually help you get there to start wearing a suit. And this is where it starts to sound insane and like too whimsical. There's no way that works. It actually works. This has been studied. I can't emphasize this enough. So this is what is behind theatrical ceremonial magic. Anything that involves like costumes or like spells and acting a part, right? Magic is really just acting the part of what you want to be and getting props involved. So another example, let's say, like, put aside the CEO one. What kinds of things do people want? Let's say your desire is to become a mother. Let's say you really just dream of that life where, you're a stay-at-home mom and you raise the kids and you cook and you're living at home and it's just like this cozy, like, trad wife fantasy, I guess. But let's say you're infertile. Shit, fuck, like, what do you do with that? Like, you want this thing, but your reality is reflecting back to you that you are not generative. You're not able to conceive a life. What do you do about that? Well, you address the symbolism of it. If you really, really want a child, but you can't have a child, you've got to interpret symbolically what a child means to you and what barrenness means to you. So let's say children to you represent hope and innocence, and so you miss that state of being. You remember a time when you felt hopeful and innocent, and you want to re-experience that, and that's what makes children so appealing to you. Well, now, if you're barren and you can't produce a tangible physical manifestation of hope and innocence, what that's saying is somewhere deep down you don't believe you can be innocent again yourself. Everything's symbolic, including your children and your relationship to them. So then once you've determined the meaning of your barrenness, then you can do some sort of magic to address the actual core issue. So if your goal is to feel innocent again, then what you might want to do is engage in childlike activities or give yourself a childhood you never had, right? Let's say your innocence was stolen from you by like childhood abuse or something. Then I would say the core issue is not that you can't have kids, it's that you're not able to experience innocence because it doesn't feel safe for you. So how can you make innocence feel safe for yourself? Maybe as a child you wanted to wear like a flower crown everywhere and your mom said no and shamed you for even wanting that. Well, let yourself do it now. Put on the flower crown and walk around like with the satisfaction of a child who gets to wear a flower crown and feel like a fairy or whatever it may be for you. I'm taking this so seriously, by the way, because it matters. Like, these things matter. And I love hearing all the different ways people come to realize how subconscious beliefs have been symbolically manifesting and holding them back. So your magic ritual then, your prescription, so to speak, would be give yourself permission to wear the flower crown and feel innocent and joyful. Restore that in yourself, and then see if your fertility situation changes. Because oftentimes what will happen when you have the genuine inner breakthrough is some solution will become available to you in the outer world that wasn't apparent to you before. So this is what it means to do SymbolSpeak. You assess the situation, understand what it means symbolically, respond symbolically, right? And then let it go. The situation changes. It's all about reshaping the mind through the vehicle that symbols afford us to introduce new ideas and new states of being into the body. Really, it's about becoming embodied in a new state of being. And sometimes the gateway to embodiment is using props, using objects in the world. But here's the note I'll end on. It's not just about going through the motions, because anyone can do a ritual, anyone can do a ceremony, but not be into it, not feel themselves changing internally. Your task as a magician, as someone acting the part of who you desire to be in the play of life, on the stage of life, your task is to actually get so into character that you forget yourself for a little bit. Right? Because your identity, it's all about identity. Whenever we're stuck in life and something's happening that we don't want, it's because we're so locked into identifying with the old state of being that all we need is an identity shift, and symbols can help us achieve that. So whether it be changing how you dress, changing how you carry yourself, going and performing some sort of ritual act or ceremonial act, understanding that it is about getting yourself into character, it is about embodying the state of being that you desire, then and only then is the magic effective. Then and only then is the symbolic approach to the problem effective. Okay? So do the magic as much as you need to until you actually feel yourself so in character that you no longer doubt that your desire is possible for you. Okay? That's what SymbolSpeak is. It's glorified magic, chaos magic, like I said in my last video. It's you devising your own symbolic response to life, the life that you subconsciously manifested, by consciously approaching the manifestation process, by becoming a new person, embodying your new state of being with whatever symbols you choose. That's all I got for you for now. Thank you so much. Again, I offer one-to-one coaching and consultation on things that might be going on in your life that you can't figure out the meaning of, can't figure out where it's coming from in your inner world. I help people come to consciousness about, what's going on in here so that they can then change it. And I help people devise their own magic rituals, their own symbolic remedial actions to then address what's going on in their life by addressing it in here first. Thanks again for watching. More to come in the future. I love you.